Welcome everybody, Jason Bell's podcast. We are here recording this at Juicy Oasis. Yes, indeed, the home of Super Juice Meat, and we are genuinely, truly blessed to have two people. They're a household name now. If you've been fans of ITV's This Morning in particular, they are, of course, the one. It's the Speakmans again. Look up. It's the Speakmans, everyone. Come on. Listen, what's lovely is that the perception of who you are is who you are. You're not celebrity therapists. You are phenomenal therapists that happen to be on television. Now, I've got hold of a book you've just kindly given me, so thank you very much. It's called The Key to Upgrading Your Life. I love the size of it. I can't wait to get stuck in.
So this is the key to upgrading your life. So it literally is just that, because there is, you're not born with a handbook or an instruction manual. And literally what we've packed in the key to upgrading your life is literally what we've done in our lives. It's not, you should do this. This is what we did. It worked for us. So we share 12 schemas, should I say?
Let's talk about schemas.
Yeah.
Within the book.
Right, so a schema is a cognitive thought process in medicine. And in psychology, it's a framework that allows us to organise and interpret information.
But for normal people.
Normal people, right? It's a reference for behaviour. Okay. That's it, right? So we've got references for good behaviours and references for bad behaviours. So when we met, we said, okay, how could we make our world a better place? Knowing what we did believe, what would we like to believe that would make our world better?
Yeah, and also, can I ask, when you did meet, how long ago did you meet?
27 years ago.
So how long have you been married?
We've been married 22 years.
22 years.
Nearly
Okay,
23.
so 27 years you've known each other. And before you knew each other, or when you first met, were you doing this already?
No.
I was doing
Nick
it, believe it wasn't.
No, I wasn't. I was working in the banking industry.
Oh, right. And then Nick, you were doing this already?
Yeah, so the great thing, Eva in the banking industry came to me in my office, left, and got a car stolen.
And guessing
Nothing to do with me.
Came to my rescue. My little knight in shining armour there, took over from the police, called my family, my parents, because I was quite young then, and took me home. And
You're still young now, aren't you?
I'm very young, yeah. And then to say thank you, I took him for lunch, and
that's when it all
just
started.
went from there.
27, and you've never been happy. You guys are genuinely happy, and you genuinely have a passion for that, even since you've been here. When people inevitably, because they know what you do and you do it so well, that they inevitably say, can I just have 5 minutes, which is always an hour, we know that. So you're incredibly generous with your time. And actually, it's also your hobby as well. You have a genuine passion for this and you love what you do. But what seems to be apparent is that often it gets misinterpreted what you do.
Basically, we created our therapy. We've created two therapies over the years as we've experimented with things. Our therapy is called schema conditioning psychotherapy, basically. And it's based upon if someone has a traumatic event, and most people's issues in the world are created by a trauma. So if we then, instead of talking about symptoms and people are variable, when the trauma is created, they then have symptomatic behaviours. Instead of looking at the behaviours, what we want to do is look at what was the trauma. Because looking on a line, you've got the trauma, and then as a result of that, you've got anxiety that is then created because of this problem that they've got here. And then because as time goes on, this person then starts getting depression because they feel out of control because of the anxiety and so on. And all these things, the depression, the anxiety can create a myriad of symptoms. You can start working here and trying to work back, which takes years. Well, our view has always been, how long did it take to get that trauma? Most traumas happen in less than a minute.
Yeah, of course.
So why, if you've suffered with something for 10 years, why should it take 10 years to get back to this point? Why can't it take a minute to take it away? And that's what we experimented with over the years. And for the best part of 20 years, we've been practicing our schema conditioning psychotherapy. And that's, and it's hugely effective. And which is why when we started working on this morning, 9 years ago, the remit was, can you cure someone of a phobia live on the show? And we said, yeah, of course, bring them
But actually on the walk this morning, I was talking to you as well, and one of the things that This Morning said to you when you were quote unquote auditioning to be on there, whatever you call it, was that they expected you to bring in the people with you that had the phobias, as if because that's what they'd done previously, and you're probably, what are you talking about? Clearly you bring them, otherwise there's no challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we always sort of said, no, we're not bothered about meeting these people, just whoever, just bring them on. And we would literally meet them on the sofa, because they couldn't even let us speak to them in the green room, because we would invariably, without even realising it, start therapy. So we then sort of said, oh gosh, no, I better stop that. We need to keep you separated. And then we would literally meet them on the sofa. They would be exposed to whatever they're fearful of. And then literally we would go off for an hour and come back an hour later and not only be exposed to the thing that they actually saw when they first arrived, but they would really ramp it up. So, for example, a lady who had a really significant phobia of ice, they tried to show her ice and they couldn't. But by the end of the show, we had her stood in a tomb of ice. So, and happily, I hasten to add.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah. Going back to our therapy, which we developed ourselves, we sort of, what are we? We're therapists, but we're quite unique in that we developed our own therapy, and there's only ourselves currently who are able to do our therapy. That said, 2.5 years ago, we were approached by a professor and a PhD student from Amsterdam. And they came to, it was quite funny really, that we were doing a meet and greet at one of our theatre tours, and like, oh hello, would you like a photograph, would you like to sign your brochure? And they were like, yes, but we also want to speak to you about therapy. And they actually asked us, they said that they'd heard of our work, and particularly with our work in trauma, because primarily originally on This Morning you will have seen us working with phobias, which are a trauma in a way, because they usually start with a trauma. However, then as the years went on, we started working with post-traumatic stress disorder and some really emotive and very emotional cases, such as a survivor, a lady who was one of only 2 survivors of the Yorkshire Ripper, a police officer who was first at the scene at the 7/7 bombings, some really inspirational people that were, from the military, paramedics from the forces.
A host of people from the Tunisia terrorist attack.
Yeah, so we've worked with some really sad cases. I say they're sad because what happened was sad, but obviously we helped them to get over their issues. And there is this thing in the UK. It was always perceived that post-traumatic stress disorder could not be cured. Right. And then you've got Nick and I going on TV and literally curing people. And the professors in Amsterdam who studied trauma, they'd heard about our work, and they literally approached us and said, look, we've heard about you. We don't know whether it's true, but we would like to invite you over to Amsterdam. We have a residential centre there. And so then the study started. So the first study was, it started with 36 people, but they had to disqualify 6 people because what they hadn't anticipated was, what if somebody gets completely over their issue within the 8 minutes allocated?
What they did, they had our therapy for 8 minutes. They had EMDR.
What is that? Explain
EMDR, it's the number one therapy for trauma, basically. So they had EMDR as a comparison, and then they had a control condition or a placebo, and they're all 8 minutes. So someone would come in and they would say that whatever it was disturbed them, 8 out of 10, for example. They had the 8 minutes therapy, and then it would go down to 4 out of 10. And someone would come in 9 and it would go down to a 6, etc. So out of these 36 people, because it's science, everything's got to be exact.
Of course.
6 people that had our therapy were actually down to 0, so they were cured essentially in 7.2 minutes. Because they didn't have the full 8 minutes, they couldn't include them.
Are you genuinely being serious, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Even with that, the 30 people that were left, our therapy was far more successful, significantly more.
And that was released. I mean, at the time of this recording, how long ago was that?
That will have been around. That will have been around 2 years ago, maybe 18 months ago. So to do that, we trained a PhD student. She's now a doctor of. She's a clinical psychologist and doctor. And so then we went back. And we've trained in our therapy, I think now in total, maybe 5 or 6 master students, professors, PhD students out there. So the second wave of studies went on, and the second wave of studies was for 75 people. Again, our therapy was far more successful.
And in the second wave of studies, they also did a follow-up, which they didn't do on the first one. So, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later.
Okay.
So where we're at now is that a book has been published about those findings and about by the PhD student, and it was part of her PhD project. So she's got a book now about trauma in which our therapy is mentioned, and the success of it being the most successful therapy. And not only that, but they've submitted a scientific paper to the Journal of Behavioural Therapy and Experimental Psychiatry, and that is pretty much one of the top science papers in the world of medicine. And it looks like, well, it is going to be published. They just asked for a few amendments, so it is imminent. So currently the whole study is embargoed, and although we're talking about it, we can't share sort of every little detail.
We're in a world now, it seems, that we have to always wait for science to catch up before some in society will take certain therapies seriously. Do you find it extraordinary that
do you know what? We've even had emails of people saying, I've seen you on this morning, I've seen your work, followed your work for years, you're amazing. I believe that you're the only people that can cure me. However, can you confirm where you studied? If you're not a doctor, I'm not coming. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
when we did our documentary Super Juice Me, it was almost irrelevant of what results there were. There were always going to be people going, well, you're not a doctor. So it's like, well, actually, that person who now doesn't take any medical drugs, they couldn't give it.
But is it as simple as, do you want to talk about it, or do you want to do it? And that's what we're faced with.
But you get to the core. You're very honest in your approach to therapy. You know, it's a very unusual. Your aim clearly is, whether it's uncomfortable to you or not, this is what we're going to tell you, because you can't live in a certain space, and other people might take 9 years for therapy. And it's hard for people to get their head around that somebody could have been in therapy for 10 years and genuinely come to you for an hour, and it's done.
Ultimately, when we're with somebody, our primary objective is to change their thinking process and make them feel happier and better and more liberated and free them of anxiety. So what we want to know is, you're not born with anxiety, you're not born with a phobia, OCD, overeating, undereating, anger issues, low self-esteem, eating disorders, whatever that might be, you're not born with it. So what we know is that all those things I've just mentioned, incidentally, are all symptoms. So we know that something created that, knowing that you're not born with it. So what all we're interested in is what started it. Now, what we look at is how can we give you the evidence to help you to see things for what they are and not how they feel. Okay, so a lot of people come to I feel this, I feel that, and we'll go, okay, well, let's see it for what it is and not how it feels. Okay, so that's the first thing. And when we say let's see it for how it is, what we do is we look at the situation and we change perspective. Example, you know, pretty much most of us have been in love at some point and thought, this is it, this is the one for me, I'm going to love this person for the rest of my life. And you create a schema about this person, that you're going to be with them forever. And then you find some categorical evidence that they've cheated on you. You don't need 10 years. You might have been with them 10 years, but you don't need 10 years for your opinion and perception to change. That's what we're doing. We are finding overwhelming evidence as to why what you're currently believing is not true. And when you accept that and listen to what we're saying, then you will change your perception. Now, you say that we're very straightforward. We're actually just being incredibly honest.
Sure. Okay.
That is all it is. So we're just saying, look, we can fluff and we can there you for 10 years if you want, or you can have it as it is, and then you will feel the change instantly. So although we can sometimes be quite straightforward and to the point, because the people get it, they get it, and then they go, oh my God, I've never seen it that way before.
But it's also unusual to find somebody in this industry. I mean, you do the complete opposite of looking for repeat business. You know, so do you know what I mean? It's like some people go, well, I can string this out for 5 years, you know, and you go, well, actually, we'd be stretched to drill this for 5 minutes. Yeah. So, you know, and that's an unusual thing, because you genuinely care about what you do. You can't be doing this for the length of time that you're doing it. You've been, like I said, incredibly generous with your time. And even I've asked you, I'm like everybody else. It's like, can you help me as well? You know, everybody has something, don't they? And it turns out on the walk this morning, it seems like I've got everything. So, So this is fantastic.
We've only just scratched the
So we've
surface,
just
I believe.
scratched the surface.
I've not even gone deeper yet.
So I, since my mother passed away, and weird, I pulled my eyebrows out. It's called I can't pronounce it.
Trichotillomania.
Trichotillomania, right? So I can't pronounce it. So I don't feel like I get any significance from it because I don't really tell anybody about it. So,
But you always wear a cap, don't you? So hide it.
so I've got a cap on now, and that's probably, either consciously or subconsciously, often because it's sunny here.
Well, you
At home, I don't wear a cap.
I've asked you a question.
Yeah, well, I don't wear a cap at home. I don't wear a cap at home, or even when I'm at restaurants.
First day you had 3 different caps on.
Yeah, not all at once, because that would have been weird. That would have been
Well, but I noticed the change, and I thought, am I going to see him with that cap on? I still haven't done.
There you go. And so this afternoon, weirdly, there's going to be some therapy on a boat. Never thought that would happen. We're going on a little speedboat.
We have done it before, though. We've given therapy on a cruise.
Which
On a
is,
cruise ship.
Yeah, we had a guy who was on the cruise, and he was, we just couldn't help it.
We got invited to the captain's table for
course you
dinner.
did.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so we sat around the captain's table trying to be dead posh and really well behaved, and so we had a singer to our right who'd been stabbed in the head and had a fear of
Stabbed in the
knives.
head.
And then we had to my right and to Nick's
but
left.
not at the time, not at the dinner party.
No.
No.
It's not-
She didn't have any cutlery in the ear.
Yeah,
It
so-
was like, get the knives away from me.
So she couldn't have any cutlery, no knives with her. She could have forks, spoons, but no
Right.
knives. So this is the first thing. So I'm sat next to a young woman who's been stabbed in the head and now has a fear of knives. Nick, conversely, and I'm sure that this was a big setup by the captain.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it's the first time I've thought about it. Yeah, how come?
And so
Yeah.
Nick to his left had this guy who had an immense fear of heights, and as a consequence of that, could not enjoy the cruise because he couldn't go out on the top. He couldn't go on deck at all.
Okay.
Period. So we're sat there and we're like, okay. So we actually did treat both of them, and they were both very lovely.
It's quite funny. Sorry, he gets stabbed in the head. It was a school play. So it was a school play, and they had obviously a pretend knife, like a plastic one. And in this play, someone's supposed to come over to her head and just stop it near her head.
Yeah.
But they couldn't find the pretend one. So it was like, you can imagine. She said it was a big knife, one of those big ones.
Don't.
So they couldn't find it. So they just said, "Oh, we'll use this, but be careful." But because it was heavier than the plastic one,
went in with force.
it went in with force, and it was literally stuck in her head.
Was it-
So you can understand why she was trying to deny.
Well, I was saying, because you must have seen just about everything, and we was talking this morning. And so we was on the walk this morning, and I thought my only issue was trichotillomania, whatever you call it, pulling your eyebrows out for no reason at all, right? So I thought that was my only issue. But then we obviously we saw a big spider's web, and then you went, "Oh, you see, scared of spiders?" I thought, well, I didn't know I was. And then he starts talking about needles. Who's scared of needles? I thought, well, I'm scared of needles. Or is it blood? I'm scared of blood as well. I'm thinking, well, I'm in trouble. Then the thing that got me, though, I'll tell you, the thing that got me on the walk this morning, because he's quite smart, is this gentleman sitting next to me now. He starts talking about the woman who ate her sofa, right? So when you said earlier, when you said, look, we got an hour, and by the time we get back on the sofa at this morning, well, there's one case, you'd be surprised if there was a sofa left, because there was a woman who was eating her sofa. No, I'm not. Listen, it sounds like I'm taking Mickey. It's obviously a serious condition. I appreciate it, but as a headline, it sounds funny. I appreciate it isn't funny, but she was eating sponges and various.
No, different people. There was a lady who was eating the sofa, and that she brought the sofa in.
Her sofa from
they
home.
brought it on the show, and there was it was moth-eaten, basically. It was eaten. It was a mess, and we worked with her. But I was saying there was also a lady who was addicted to eating sponges, and what had happened, and the reason why she was on the show is because she was in some magazine, and the show had picked it up and asked us if we could work with her, and she was eating on average 3 sponges a day.
You see, I know it's serious, but you can't help. And there'll be people listening now that will have a little wry smile. And I know it's not funny, but when it's just the headline that somebody's eating sponges. And I guarantee if that was a trailer for this morning, people will go, "What is going on?" But you were saying on the walk as well, you were saying, but there's no difference between that and you putting your eyebrows out. And I'm like, well, but I suppose there's a point in that. But in a way,
the classification is obsessive compulsive disorders, and essentially, trichotillomania is classified as an OCD.
Right, I'm not
as is eating sponges, because that's called pica, and it's under the same classification. So you are in that class.
Oh, he knows what he's doing as well. He already knows what he's doing. He knows that I'm going to hear those guys that I'm going to go, I'm not having a disorder. I'm not a person with a disorder, so I'm going to stop doing it.
Disorder.
Yeah, you see? He knows what he's doing. I love it. So, right, that's it. Just because of you, I'm not going to pull my eyebrows out anymore. It's funny that we were talking yesterday about one of our favourite sketches on YouTube now. It's by Bob Newhart.
Love it.
And listen, if you're listening now and after this podcast and you just want to go,
Gotta see it.
there's two things that I would always say on YouTube to watch. One is Jim Carrey juicing, doing a skit on what used to be called The Juice Man, the funniest 5 minutes, along with Bob Newhart. Stop it. So I do it subconsciously. It's like half falling asleep, but I can get on an airplane transatlantic with eyebrows and get off without. And it's just what happened when I've been asleep for 8 hours and now I've got no eyebrows left.
Do you know what? You could do that to the woman at the side of you. She wouldn't need a waxing before holiday.
So,
Take a leg instead.
So listen, here's the thing, right? So listen, it's one of those that if anybody sees me after this podcast or whatever, and I've got no eyebrows left, I mean, I'm going to say, well, you need to speak to the Speakmans because
Disorder, disease.
I find it incredibly difficult to have therapy of any kind, or even talk. Like, it's just like, well, I don't need fixing, which probably needs I do. but then it frustrates me because I write you an email and then I come back and I think, just stop it. So I come back to Bob Newhart. I come back to Bob Newhart going, just stop it. What you got to do is just stop it. What are you doing? And even when I'm doing it, I'm going, well, just stop it. Then I'm going, oh no, it feels good. So the challenge that you have, everybody wants a piece of the Speakman action. And of course they do. And that must be very difficult to balance because you want to help people, you can't help everyone.
We now get 1,000 emails a week.
Asking for help.
Right. So, and because basically our aim is to get our therapy into the NHS because we just want to help more people.
Yeah.
And so what we've had to do is cut our clinic down, and essentially now our clinic's like 2 days a week because we're working with the universities. On this morning because we want to get more awareness, we're writing books.
Do you want to explain a day in the life of one of your workshops? Where can we find you?
Amazing.
You love the
amazing day.
I'm still
Can I tell you why I adore our workshops? Because it is a full day and you can see people come in, they're anxious, they're fearful. You can see they've got issues, they've got low self-esteem, and they come in and they just look so fragile and so broken. And as the day goes on, it's like piece by piece, they're starting to come
Well, you said something very
together.
beautiful the other day where, yes, you can be on stage with 5,000 people, 10,000 people, and yes, a lot of those will have change. But you love to see this and you like to be part of it because you genuinely care about it. So that's why you love your workshop so much because you're part of it. And you can have a workshop of 5,000 people, you don't want that.
No.
That's the point. So it's limited.
No,
You said it's limited.
We limited it to numbers that means that we can speak to everybody.
Everyone individual.
That they can, so every break, every lunch, and even at the end of the day, we don't go until everybody who wants to speak to us can come and have a chat with us, have a photograph, ask us a personal question. And because of what we're teaching throughout the day, they know the question to ask, so that we can spend 5 minutes with them at the end of the day and just say, right, boom, they've got the question. They know what they need now, and we can change them just in a sentence.
Can't thank you guys enough for coming over, being the people that you are, helping hundreds of thousands of people all around the world, being the magic makers that you are. Looking forward to reading the book. The Key to Upgrading Your Life is the first in a series. Looking forward to reading the entire series. Good luck with everything that you're doing and the documentary that you will make, hopefully, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the one, the only, the brilliant, exceptional. It's the Speakmans.